Hey, give it up for our worship team this morning. They did a killer job. Love that. Hey, we are excited you are here today. We are going to continue celebrating 10 years of real life church and the impact that we've got to be able to make here in Mountain Home. So we're looking forward to it. We're going to celebrate today. Got a question real quick. Unpack this morning. Has anybody in here been around for 10 years of real life church? That started in the junior high. Awesome. There's a few over there in the back. Perfect. Braden's got his hand up again. I'm glad to know that Braden has been around for the whole ride. So it's exciting because real life started 10 years ago in Mountain Home. It actually started before that in Flippin, in a pawn shop that ran along the railroad tracks there across the street from the school in this place called Sodi's. And I went a couple times in high school with a friend. Didn't really remember real life a whole lot until Pastor Vince called me again a couple years ago. But I did remember Sodi's, because Sodi's was good. Like they had these fried jalapenos that were like really good. So I remember going to Sodi's. Didn't really remember real life a whole lot. But it's an honor and a privilege to get to be here because I love my church. Anybody else with me on that? You love your church? Good deal. Awesome. You can go get a new shirt, too, to represent that and let people know that you love your church. So there's a plug. And there's some cool ones out there that one of our students, Mason Dixon, made that have Yahweh on them. Pretty cool. But it's exciting to be able to be here. We've gone through a lot of cool stuff here at Real Life, different buildings, different phases, different growths, all kinds of really incredible things to take place in the story. So 10 years ago in Mountain Home, after Flippin', Pastor Vince sensed the call of God saying, hey, you need to plant in Mountain Home. Move this thing there. So set up and tear down into junior high for a little bit. And then from there, went to the bus garage, the bus depot out on the highway as you leave town. Changed that and remodeled it into a church. And from there, outgrew it to where we were then able to have the opportunity to purchase this area of land right here and began to meet in the white building next door. That white building used to be a horse barn, riding arena, and stable, which is now our Reach Center. And so it's really cool to be able to see what God did in that, because in that season, radical revival broke out in Real Life Church. And numbers skyrocketed, and a lot of fun and good stuff began to take place. And then the opportunity to build this building happened. And then from there, the opportunity to launch in Gainesville as we remodeled an airplane hangar up there. So there's a theme, I guess, of bus garage and pawn shop along the railroad tracks, horse barn into airplane hangar. So I don't know what this building would be considered, but whatever mode of transportation to get the gospel out, we'll take it. So it's pretty cool to be able to see what God's done. But what's even more cool and incredible is the same God that made revival, and we saw revival take place in a horse barn, is the same God ready to do revival right now in this pretty building here, or in an airplane hangar in Gainesville, Missouri. And it's really cool because in those 10 years, you get to hear lots and lots of life change and really neat stories. And Pastor Vince today, him and Pastor Kirby and their wives are on a retreat with some other pastors, getting to spend some time away and connect with friends. So and I think he may have intentionally asked me to preach this day so he didn't have to share all those stories like he likes to do. But I'm excited because I love this topic, because I love church. I love the local church. I was kind of jealous at first when they said they were going to go on their little retreat because they were going to Vegas, and then it got switched to Gatlinburg, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not really that jealous anymore. So you guys enjoy your time. We'll hold it down here and make it happen. But I love my church, and I love what we get to be a part of. I love what we get to do, and I love why we do it and the mission behind that, the mission of we're going to reach one more person, one more family, one more community for the cause of Christ. It's what we do. What we do matters. It's why we do it. Anybody in the room today that's not a staff member, can you tell me what one of our values are? What's one of our values? Just yell it out. Reach one more. That's the mission. We are generous. That's a value. We're better together. What else? There's two more. Two more. We're better together. We are generous. We're never finished. And no, that's a staff one. Cheater. We're better than good. We're better than good. We're never finished. We're better than good. We're better together. And we are generous. What does that mean? What does that mean? Why do we do those things? Why do we say those things? Are they who we are, or is it just who we say we are? There's a difference in who we say we are and who we are. And we have to make it a priority to make sure the things that we say are the things that we actually are. What we do here matters. Jesus has trusted the local church to be the hope of the world, trusting broken people made whole to make the decision to be a hospital for the broken, a hospital for the healing. You say, that doesn't even make sense. Well, when you get a diagnosis and you've been healed from it, you still got to go for checkups. You still got to make sure you're good. That's why the church exists. Jesus started this thing in order for his mission and his glory to be revealed and to be carried out. And he's trusted us with it. There's all kinds of cool stuff that gets to take place here, and there's so much intentionality behind it. Volunteers make up the stuff that we do here at Real Life Church. Without volunteers, it wouldn't be possible. Without you being here, it wouldn't be possible. You say, well, yeah, the church is the people, not the building. Well, the people have to show up to the building to be the church. You got to gather somewhere. You got to gather together in order to be the church. One of my favorite teams is the tech team. They've been running around like crazy today with mic issues and figuring out how to do software and making sure that the service is still going to go up online, making sure people in the house are having a good experience as well. That's one of my favorite teams. That team back there has been killing it. And there's something about when you get excited about something and get passionate about something and you recognize that something matters, you'll do anything and everything to make sure that it happens. It's the heart. It's why we do what we do. McKenna back there, she's on the soundboard today. She showed up a couple weeks ago. She's usually up here singing. She's doing all kinds of different cool stuff when it comes to platform or in the tech area and worship. But she showed up a couple weeks ago and she grabbed the floor machine and she mopped the whole floor in here and the one in the foyer and made the loop in the kids area. She doesn't have to do that. But she chose to because she knows it matters. This past week, our interns were finishing up their summer internship with a project. They were either presenting or they were preaching. And several of the tech team came in and they were in here in order to give them the same experience as if they were preaching on a Sunday morning. Screens on, mics on, transition music, all those kinds of things. And then to sit in the room to be able to give feedback and criticism to make sure those interns are growing. Because they know that the next step matters. And they know what they're investing matters. And they want to make sure that they're doing all they can to make sure that it gets done. Why we do what we do here matters. We filter everything in life through experiences. And if you sat in a Life Connect with me, you maybe heard this illustration before. But we filter everything in life through experiences. We're all about experiences. And you may be saying, well, I don't know if I necessarily agree or like the thought of church being an experience. It is. When you break it down, it is. And we want to offer people an experience in order to encounter Jesus. Because when you show up, your filter is running. You're processing. You're trying to figure everything out. Just like if a new restaurant opened up in town, you would begin thinking of when you're going to go, when does it open, making the plans, and when you got there, how long is the wait? Should I get on the wait list? Am I going to go somewhere else? What is the environment like, the aesthetic? Does it match my personality? What's the menu look like? Is it affordable? Is it match up with what the product's going to be? How are the servers doing? Are they taking care of me? How quick, how long did it take for the food to come out? Are they checking on me? You're filtering everything through this experience. People do the same thing with church. They do, and they should. Because the church should be a place that people want and desire to come to. I forgot about this, but I saved it after the last experience. I haven't shared it in the other two, so you get the perk of hearing these beautiful stats that a friend shared with me this week. These are some numbers about churches right now. 85% of churches are stalled or declining. 14% are growing, but only growing from transfer, as in people moving from a different church to that church. 1% of churches are growing from conversions. 96 churches close every week. 53,000 people quit going to church every week. 50 pastors leave ministry every day. 65% of the U.S. population hold a secular worldview. Those aren't good numbers. Because the church isn't a place where people want to come to for some reason anymore. Whether it's we have done a poor job of serving, we've done a poor job of being available, we've done a poor job of providing an experience, or we've done a poor job of saying, hey, we're open, you can come back. I don't know what the disconnect is, but people got to be at church because we want them at church. See, when you go to that restaurant, after it's all said and done, you're already ready to share the experience with someone, whether it's a new one in town or you're going somewhere and you're looking for a new experience. You're going to tell someone that it was your favorite spot, or you loved it, they killed it, you're going to go back as often as you can. Or you're going to tell them, you know what, it was good, we'll put it in the rotation, or it wasn't great, we might try it again on down the line and hope they got everything worked out, or there's no way I'm ever going back. People have the same response to their experience at church. There's an intentionality to everything we do to make sure that people have an experience and an encounter with God. People show up to the restaurant in order to eat, to get fed. Why do people show up to church? To get fed spiritually. But we've created this construct somewhere on down the line where they only want to show up when they feel like they need to get fed, rather than wanting to show up and then in return being fed with this fast food model, the buffet model, whatever you want to use. And if I want it my way and I want it fast and I want it cheap, or I'm going to show up and consume as much as I can, as fast as I can, and then I'll come back next time that I'm hungry. We want people to have an experience that they enjoy and that they can share with their friends and their family. People waving and they're excited when you come into the parking lot. A cup of coffee that can help in a conversation, because how many times do you go to someone's house and when you sit on the couch, you put a pillow on your lap? Because now there's something in between you and them, and it's a barrier in conversation that you're comfortable on. Cup of coffee does the same thing. The reason that we're intentional with how we set up our worship services and who we put on the stage, because Miss Sally may say she can sing, but Miss Sally really can't sing. There's an intentionality because God is intentional. And God is in the details. If you were to look at the makeup of who you are and the science behind how you were created, you would be amazed, and I'm sure you continually are amazed, at how God made that happen. The beauty of what we get to live in and the intentionality we have to be intentional with what he's trusted us with to reach people. And you get to be a part of that. I'm going to break down just 3 things of why we do what we do and our values. And the first is this, is what we do as a church. What we do is because it's our response. It's our responsibility. A 2-part word there. See, we operate out of the response of who Jesus is and what he's done for us. See, he went before us on the cross and he bore our sins and he washed us clean and he died and he was the ultimate sacrifice. 3 days later, defeating death and conquering the grave for you to have victory in whatever you face. And out of your response, we serve, we love, we lead, we encourage, because it's our responsibility to make sure that someone hears about Jesus. You see, I think we seesaw on Jesus a lot of times because we want to pick the Jesus that saved us and washed us clean and was a sacrifice for us because it feels good. And he's made us whole and made us new in that. But then we discount the Jesus that defeated death 3 days later, where the power and the authority actually comes from to wash you clean, rather than recognizing that he's both. We want to pick the one that feels good for us in the moment. Just kind of like how we want to pick the service that we want to go to, or we want to pick how we worship because of the songs that were played, or we want to pick because of the person that was preaching that morning. When it's the same Jesus that's ready to speak to you in every experience, in every encounter. It's our response because it's our responsibility. It says this in Matthew 28:16-20. It's the Great Commission verse that we broke down like 18 times already this year. But it doesn't change. It says, now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. And when they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. Evangelism and discipleship. A lot of churches say, we're a church about evangelism or we're a church about discipleship. We don't get to pick which one we're a church about. We have to be a church about both. We have to be going out to get the people, to bring them in, or telling them, hey, there's a place to come back to no matter what the last year has looked like. There's people that still don't know that they can come back to church because their habits have changed. But they're waiting on someone just to give them a reminder of, hey, I haven't seen you in a minute. When are you going to come back? There are people that Jesus is intentionally putting in your path to say, hey, how about you come to church with me? Or, hey, do you know about Jesus? There are people that should be sitting in church with you, but we're not being obedient enough to go and to ask. Because too many times, my church is my church. I want the experience. I want Jesus to speak to me. I want to be able to be here. I don't know if I want them at church. I don't know if God's going to speak to them. I don't know if it's for them. I don't know if it's their personality. I don't know if it's their style. God's asking you to be obedient and invite them. Let him handle the rest. Don't let my church that you love be my church. People do the same thing with Jesus, and it really frustrates me. Let me tell you about my Jesus. Your Jesus, that's pretty selfish. You should be sharing about Jesus. Being about discipleship. Life groups, we're better together. Serve teams, opportunities for you to be able to connect with other people that are like-minded, to encourage you, to lean into, to lean on. You were never created to do life alone. You've got to be around people. It's why we gather. It's why we're here. It's why we worship. It's why we sing. Yes, you can have church anywhere, but there's something about getting together as a body of believers, proclaiming one thing that makes a really big difference. We don't get to choose if we're a church of evangelism or a church of discipleship. We got to be about both. You say, well, how do you be about discipleship? We're a large congregation. How do you connect with everybody? You see, we're creatures of habit most of the time. And there's someone that's waiting on you to invite them to church, but they're saying, I don't know about big church. How do you meet anybody? You say, well, you're probably going to sit in the same seat just about every week, and so are the people around you. So just turn around and say hi and introduce yourself, connect with someone. But most of the time when Jesus is going to be asking you something, the ball is always going to be in your court. And it's something that we have to be obedient in because it's our responsibility to listen, to respond, to be responsible with the mission. It's why, as a church, as leadership, we don't do church membership. You may have heard this before. We don't do membership. We do what we call partnership, because members feel like they have rights and they can make a decision and they have a say. But partners have a responsibility because we all have a weight to carry to get the message of Jesus out. So we are all responsible to make that happen. We're in this together. We all have people in our circles that aren't in other people's circles that you can go and ask and you can go and tell about Jesus. You say, I don't know how to talk about Jesus. I don't know how to tell anybody about that. I don't have the words or the means. If you tell them about your church, I promise you when they show up, we'll tell them about Jesus. But tell them about your church. Tell them about why we do what we do. Tell them about how we do it, how it's intentional, and we want to make sure that they enjoy being here and that they connect with people. See, over the last year, though, there's been some kind of disconnect. We're into July now, and I asked for this number, so it's not made up. Between Gainesville and Mountain Home, we've had 312 VIPs this year. 312 VIPs come through the doors at Real Life Church in about 6 months. It's pretty phenomenal. But where is the disconnect to people that aren't returning? How come that number doesn't continually grow? How many people are you following up with because you invited that, they came back or they showed up because I invited them, but that's all Jesus asked me to do and you never followed up with them? There's something that we're missing. There's more that we can be doing. See, we are never finished because there's always someone that we can reach. There's always another person that we can invite. There's always another person that is sat on our hearts and in our heads that God's saying, you need to tell them about your church. You need to tell them about me. And it may be a person that you went to elementary school with and you've been friends with for 20 years and they've watched you grow up and they've seen you go to church and they know who you say you are, but you never invited them, and the devil's got it twisted in your head that he's saying you can't invite them now because you never have. They don't think you care anymore, so why would you invite them? Why are they going to listen? And Jesus is still saying, no, invite them. Just tell them. They're waiting on it. The number way to get people at church is still an intentional invite, because there is a personal connection to what's going to take place. When you invite someone, you get to be a part of a miracle. You get to be a part of a life change. You get to be a part of an encounter because you are obedient. You will miss out on so many things in life that Jesus has in store for you if you're not obedient. You just got to take a step. Some are small, some are big, but all he's asking for you to do is take that step, because we are to operate as a response because we're responsible. The other reason that we do what we do is because what we do is for the best. And that best goes to a lot of different things. Number one, we do it for the best because God is the best. And we're here to do it for him. We're here to proclaim his name. We're here to lead people to him. We're here to serve him. But at the same time, I feel like we have the best pastor also. And I'm here to honor him and to lift him up and make his job easier so he can do the things that God's called him to do. For the best, because that Jesus believes that each and every one of you are the best. And so we're here to serve, and we're here to invite, and we're here to provide an experience so you can have an encounter with Jesus, because your work week was awful and you need a moment. But the same person that it's the best for is the person that sits in the cubicle 2 down from you. It's the same person that cut you off in traffic, and you know who they were, but next time you see them, you're going to tell them about that rather than saying, hey, man, that wasn't cool, but that's okay. I'd love to invite you to church. There's the best. To serve the best, to be a part of the best. It says this in Ephesians 3:14-20. For this reason I bow my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth is named, that according to the riches of his glory he may grant you to be strengthened with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may have strength to comprehend with all the saints, that is the breadth and length and height and width and depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled with the fullness of God. Now to him who is able to do more far abundantly than all that we ask or think, according to the power at work within us. To him be glory in church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever and ever. Amen. I am a firm believer that you will never be able to tap into all that you have in store for you until you start serving in the local church. Being able to use your gifts and your talents in the way that God created you to be in order to make a difference in someone else's life rather than just making a difference in your own. I think we get it twisted a lot of times because we feel like gifts and talents are here for us to help God in order to reach people, when in reality, gifts and talents are what God gives us to help us, because without him, we're nothing. We have no abilities, we have no access, we have no means in order to be able to make a difference, because in our gifts and talents that he's blessed us with, he's saying, here is an avenue, here is a way, use this to bring me glory so people will come to know me. You can go a long way with talent, but it can become surface level really fast. But when you begin to operate in your gifting and recognizing who God has created you to be, makes a big difference. I think a lot of times I know a lot of times as the church, as in not just our church, but the local church, the organization of the church across the globe, has done a really poor job in communicating honor. And I'm a guy that's about honor, and I love our pastor, but I would tell him this, and he would tell me to tell you this as well. Because I've told him, I've told our staff, I've told others around us. Because I've seen too many people fall. The higher you elevate someone and put them on a pedestal, the faster and harder they hit the ground. I've seen too many pastors that are friends that have quit. Less than 10% of people that are called to ministry actually finish their career involved in ministry. Because it's hard. Because we don't always have people in our corner. And because as soon as you do make a mistake, there's not a whole lot of grace, but there's a lot of people quick to tear you down. And I love our pastor. Again, I think he's the best. But there's a thought that too many times that if I can get closer to the pastor, if I can get closer to the leader, then I'll be able to make a bigger difference, or I'll have more impact, or I'll have more influence. It's not about your proximity to the leader. It's about your proximity to the heart of the vision. I can tell you right now, Pastor Vince's heart and his vision is for people to know Jesus. If you know that, you're close enough. Go out and get people. Go out and invite people. See the broken, see the hurting within them. Then the proximity, that proximity is what matters. Just because he doesn't invite you to dinner doesn't mean you can't make a difference. You've got people around you that are waiting on you to say, hey, let me tell you about a place that will show you life, a place that will show you love, a place that will give you an encounter that's set up for an intentional encounter with Jesus. Are we going to do it right every time? No. We mess up, but we got to learn to make it better the next time. We're better than good. What does that mean? Good is the enemy of great. And if God created everything in this perfect beauty that he is, including you, did everything to the best of his ability for you to enjoy it and for you to appreciate it, and from the beginning for you to reign over it, we got to do our best. There's a lot of athletes that are good. There's not very many that are great. And the ones that are great, we talk about. There's this dude that plays for the Lakers. He's an actor now too, Lebron James. LeBron James puts $1.5 million into his body every year. Between workouts, diets, nutritionists, trainers, $1.5 million he puts into his body to make sure that he can be the best that he possibly can be. He makes about $45 million a year from the Lakers alone. You throw in his endorsement deals, which are about $60 a year, he's making $105 million a year. His Nike contract has undisclosed figures. There's no telling how much money this dude's making every year. But he puts $1.5 million into being the best that he can be. And if you break that down, it's less than 1% of his annual income he invests into himself to be the best he can be. How much are you investing in yourself to be the best Christian and the best leader, the best follower of Jesus that you can be? If you made $30,000 last year, it's less than $300. That's a few books, it's some videos, it's going to a conference, it's an encounter. But how much have you invested in yourself to be the best that you can be? Because when it comes down to it, he's the best. He believes you're the best. We just have to operate in the best. We want to be the best. We're better than good. There's an intentionality in everything we do. The reason when you show up to life groups that there's tablecloths on top of the table is just because it looks better, it's presentable, it's more inviting. We want to make sure that people have a place that they can meet with Jesus, that they enjoy being here. See, Jesus has trusted the church to be his vehicle for people to hear about him, but we still have to have a driver. You still got to get in the seat and get people there. You say, well, we've got into this model, this culture of fast food. Want it now, I want it fast, I want it cheap, but I still want it to be really good. People have done the same thing with church, but we've gone even a step further in culture. We don't even have to go through the drive-thru anymore. We can have it all delivered to our house. You can DoorDash it, you can Postmates it, you can Uber Eats it, you can get your groceries delivered to your house. The same thing happens with church. You could have sat at home today and attended any church in the country. Yet you chose to be here. Why did you choose to be here? And how are you sharing that with someone else? You could have gone and listened to someone that preached a message a whole lot like this one. You could have gone to listen to the churches that wrote the music that we sang. You can go to the churches that have an encounter and have an online experience where people are actually interacting with you. I love online church. I believe it truly makes a difference, and we're going to keep doing it. But we also need to be together, need to be a community. And as a person whose life was changed by the local church, hear me out here, what you do matters. From the moment that you walk through the door, to the person that you invite, to the cup of coffee that you serve, to the door that you open, the sign that you hold, the button that you click, the music that you play, the words that you speak, it all matters. The trash that you take out, the rug that you sweep, it all matters. See, I grew up in church. I don't know if you did, but my very first job was being the groundskeeper for the church. And I've almost got it tattooed on me before because I've heard this so many times. Dad, why do I have to do this? Aaron, you don't have to do it. You get to do it. You don't have to do it. You get to do it. It's a heart thing. Because I know when I show up that God's ready for someone to encounter who he is. And my heart has to be right and be available to making sure all of that is ready. Making sure that my job is done because he's going to show up no matter what. But I want to bring him honor and I want to bring him glory and I want to be the best that I can be for the best that's ever been. And as a person whose life was changed by the local church, listen, what you do matters. Because there came a time in our life where I didn't want to be at church anymore because the church hurt. And I felt like it tore our family apart. But the only place I knew to go was the church. And we were driving down the road and we were on our way to a church and Mom asked if we wanted to stop at another one, and I said, nope, not going there. And we hit the next driveway, and I said, no, turn around, let's go back. We pulled in the parking lot, and the dude that was in the parking lot that day, the first people at the doors, the people in the lobby, and the people at the cafe counter, our first 4 encounters were with people that were the first 4 encounters we had when our family moved from Oklahoma to Arkansas. Only God can set up intentional encounters like that. And from that moment, people begin to invest in me and believe in me, say, hey, you got potential, you got capacity, you can lead, you can preach. How can we use those things in order for God's message to get out and people to hear about Jesus? What you do matters. It says this in Matthew 18:16-20. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Then he strictly charged the disciples to tell no one that he was the Christ. This guy, Peter, usually referred to as Simon Peter, because in the original language, that was Simon who became Peter. See, Jesus changed his name because his identity was changed. The only person that can make you new, the only person that can change your identity, to take you from the old to the new, to the dead, to the alive, is Jesus. And he's the only one that has naming rights over you. And he took this guy named Simon Peter, and he said, you know what, you've doubted before, you've questioned before. We've fought back and forth some here and there, but you are the one that I will build my church upon. Broken, confused, hurting, uncertain, unsure. Does it sound a little bit like someone else he's trusting with the church? Because you can make a connection with someone that I can't and that I won't ever know. But you'll still get to be a part of their miracle. Don't miss out on that. You say, I don't like big church. Well, then heaven's not going to be very fun for you because that's going to be a really big church. We get into this cycle of excuses and we can go into Hebrews on it and get preacher versey on it about how do not forsake the assembly of gathering together, for it is good for you, and all those kind of things, because we make excuses. But the same scriptures that people are reading today, the same issues that we're facing today with political corruptness and injustice and heartbreak and hurting and disease and sickness and people skipping church, are the same things that people were walking through in the Bible. None of those issues have changed. They just look a little bit different. You know what else hasn't changed is the mission of the church. The place that's supposed to be here for the orphans and the widows and the broken and the hurting. The place where people come to meet Jesus. I don't want people coming back just because they feel like they need to be fed again. I want people coming back because they like to be here. And there's a place that you can tell them about, hey, why don't you come with me? Because it's a good time. Rather than, you know what, it's summer, we're going to go to the lake. Man, I'd love to see you back though. Yeah, we'll be there next week. Hey, where were you? Oh, it was tax-free weekend, so we need to do some school shopping, made that happen. All right, cool. Well, man, I'd love to see you. We'll see you next week. And then, oh, well, we took another trip to make sure before school started. We wanted to get away. Okay, cool. Well, whenever you're back, and then Labor Day, and then deer season, and then Thanksgiving, and then Christmas, and then it's New Year's Eve. So I'm going to make a resolution that I'm going to go to church more this year than I did last year because I didn't go at all last year. Then a couple snow days. There's a cycle of excuses that we come up with really fast, but Jesus never made excuses. You're worth it, and the person that Jesus has on your heart is worth it. We got to get in the game. Whether it's saying yes to Jesus the first time today, the person that walked this earth to be the perfect sacrifice for your brokenness, or it's to take the step in baptism and putting the jersey on and getting in the game, or maybe it's to go through Life Connect and begin to serve and figure out who we are as a church and why we do what we do, or to reconnect and start serving again. We got to get in the game. Stop going to church and start being the church. I love my church, but what I love even more is to see what God's going to do through the church. Because the same God that showed up and made revival happen in a bus garage and in a horse barn is the same God ready for revival to break out. And it starts with you. It starts with you being intentional with an invite, because the number one way to get someone to church is with an intentional invite. Get in the game. We have the best president, owner, GM ever to exist. And we've got a really good coach. And we've got a great team. Be on the team and get in the game. So heaven begins to grow and hell begins to shake. Because you're saying, hey, I need you at church because you matter. Because Jesus is something more for you. Whether it's you feel like you're broken, he's going to make you whole. Whether it's you're depressed, he's going to give you joy. Whether you're sick, he'll bring healing. When you're confused or you're doubt, he'll show you promise. I don't know who I'm called to be or why I'm even here to exist. He'll show you your real identity and who he's created you to be. Invite someone. Be intentional. You say, well, they keep telling me no. Until God tells you to stop asking them, keep asking them. He'll work on the rest of it. Just be faithful. Just be obedient. And when he asks, do it. Delayed obedience is always disobedience. But get in the game. There's too many people whose lives are in the balance. There's too many people who still don't know about Real Life Church. There's too many people who don't know about Jesus for us to sit back and coast because we're comfortable. God never called us to be complacent and comfortable. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and being able to go where he has you next. And to take a step, whether big or whether small, just knowing that he's called you to take a step.